Welcome to this episode of Wars Going On. Unfortunately, during this episode, there was a problem with my microphone and it didn't manage to record all of it for whatever reason. However, there was a lot of good conversation points from Behemoth, and I didn't want to lose those, so I thought it was worth sharing with the community. So please do tune in. If there's any, if the video is disjointed, it's because I've cut out long periods of blank audio where I had been talking, and I've replaced anything that is obviously that can be said with a flashcard just to go and keep the thing going. But mostly I've just put in little questions that I raised as title cards, and I hope you enjoy the episode. But do stick around for the end because there is something which I think will be coming for the anniversary as a little event. Hello and welcome once again to Wars Going On. I'm Mark Turris, and we are here on the Forerunner server to bring you the latest in what's going on in Watcher of Realms. As ever, this is a community-based podcast, so please do remember to like and subscribe and get involved down in the comments section. Hit that thumb and share with your friends because that really does help grow the channel. So this week, I'm joined by a member of the Forerunners Guild, of the Dragon Slayers community. This is Behemoth. He's wants to talk about a couple of things today, and but first we will go through the latest patch which has arrived on the Forerunner server, and it actually brings in a couple of hidden features which weren't in the patch notes in the way that Moontoon love to do these things, but have been very highly requested. So we will see if Behemoth has spotted those, and we will go through them. So right. Anything you want to say, Behemoth, about before we dive into it, to introduce yourself?
No, just thank you for having me on. It's great to see the sort of vibe you're getting where we're trying to talk through what's coming up. I think there's been some really good little evolutions in the game recently, and we can sort of see a little bit more. The devs making some conscientious efforts to improve the game, and obviously with the anniversary coming up, so it's nice to see the little changes. And then we're still all waiting to see what exactly we're going to get for the anniversary. And obviously in Forerunner we get to see things a little bit early, so it's great to sort of bring people a little bit of advanced knowledge of where that's going to get them over the next few weeks of gameplay.
Absolutely. So first up, the patch notes. So this was a bit of a small one. Now, Diaochan, as you're aware, is a bit of a tricky little minx when it comes to Arena, and she does whatever she wants. Now, this introduced a feature where the changes that you make during your battle that you save are then become the default for the stance. When you upload that and save it, that's what she will do in everyone going forward. So you don't have to worry about her not switching when you're expecting her to do, or to switch just because she feels like it. So all of you who are running Sargak in single target arena, in anti-air arena, suddenly had her switch modes when you didn't want it to. That problem has been solved. So yeah, that's a really nice quality of life change there. So very grateful for that one.
It can definitely cost you a lot of battles. That previous bug, it's been annoying. It's been one of the reasons to use constants, for example. It's something you can look for and exploit when you see somebody get, it doesn't switch for them. So, it's nice to see it go. I do think it would be nice if they actually changed her to a default of the attack stance, and then that would have limited the problem anyway, rather than her starting on the healing stance. So that would have been a nice little switch, because that's generally what you want to run.
Yeah, I guess they're trying to do it from a lore perspective. I mean, she came in and she thought she was doing the right thing when she met Lubu, and she was a dancer, and it was all sweetness and light, and then things went a bit dark for her, and then she got upset, and that's the Song of Sorrow, which leads to the increased attack and inspirations. So I guess that's why they've done that default. But yeah, if you could default her to be in one mode over the other, that would probably make a lot of difference to some people. While we're talking about Arena, something that I spotted when I was just playing around in the trainer, and is not in the patch notes anywhere, is that it doesn't actually seem to jump around as much. Oh, there goes my chance of Overlord. in when you're playing around. So if you go between battle stages, so this isn't geared, but just to see if it does this. I don't think it's zooming back out at the end of a phase and taking the focus away in the way that it had been. Oops. Here we go. So, here we go. Come on. Mess this up. But anyway, we'll soon find out because if it will zoom out. So it locks that, but it doesn't change the camera position. It's not zooming me back out. The camera has remained locked, which has been a massively requested feature.
Well, if that solves the issue where it was really difficult to place the first character before it jumped you, and then you would often lose the ability to place the character for a split second because it would move the camera, that is great, because that was super annoying when you play manual or you're playing, particularly with you are there with Cyrene, where you're trying to get her down as fast as possible to get the cost help. So if that's gone, then superb. Because that has been a big bug, and it almost makes tablet better than phone, because the tablet doesn't need it to move, whereas the phone wants to move it. So so if that's something they've done, that's not mentioned, great.
Yeah, it does look like it's not moving the camera around anymore, so that's really cool. But it would have been nice to let people know that it's coming to patch. So there you go, exclusive to Wars Going On. None of the other content creators are talking about this as an upcoming feature. So
have you been on Honor's Gauntlet today, by the way?
I don't play on Global at all.
No, the Honor's Gauntlet, the special battle, with the 3 different modes.
Oh yes.
So that seems to have got very stuttery now that it's gone to global. So it was very laggy, and we haven't had that before. So I wonder whether there's a bandwidth issue now that it's been released to global.
Maybe, but I mean, the rankings on it it's not massively played on this server anyway, mostly because the rewards are pretty pointless. I mean,
they could do with a season, some sort of season reward that would make it much better.
Absolutely, they need to give people an encouragement to play. It's one of the things I moaned to the dev team about.
It's quite a good mode because it stretches you to have sort of 15, 16, 18 good characters, to have more gear sets because you can't reuse them. So it does sort of give you a little bit of pride in terms of having a more diverse hero roster, so.
Well, amusingly, they say they've improved the matchmaking rules for commanders to try and make people have more balanced matches in Honor's Gauntlet. And I think that in the last patch, they did actually introduce gear lock to Honor's Gauntlet. So they are trying to improve it, but personally, I would much rather have more united front than have Honor's Gauntlet at all. Because I think that co-op battling is just so much fun, and I keep telling them to make it permanent.
Did like that, would like it back. It was fun, and likewise, it was challenging to work out how was the best way to work together. So you try and get somebody and play with them a couple of times to work out what heroes to take if somebody else takes something.
I've been enjoying watching our alliance mates play around with it and seeing their enjoyment of this feature, and it definitely echoes the fact that it's some of the best content they've introduced in a long time as a cooperative game mode. It just adds something completely different to something which is normally quite a solitary gameplay. Right, so anyway, going back to the patch notes, Durza, they've optimized the hyperlink description of his Awakened 5. Let's have a quick look at what his Awakened 5 is, Durza.
You haven't got it. You haven't got Durza either. A very difficult hero to get. Still waiting for a copy.
Yeah. So the introduce HP reduction of Sanguine Knight increases the. It adds an attack speed increase, and it clarifies what the attack speed increase is and how long, and they've stated how long it will last. So there you go. So that's just a bit of clarity on how Durza works.
50 is pretty useful, isn't it? Because that generally will get you up a break.
It's about 0.1 at the higher end. So
Prospector's got a great Discord with the break speeds on it, and 50s. Yeah, you can definitely play around with that if you know you're getting 50.
I do also have an Excel spreadsheet where you can just type in your, which you can go along to the column, type in your the formula, because the formula's all there, and you just input your additional speed, and it'll calculate the output. So, and it shows that it's not held to a decimal point. It just displays one decimal point, but the full calculation.
So you're still getting a little bit, even though you're not quite at the. Oh, yeah. I did not know that. Very useful.
So Tallulah, there's a visual effect when the Forest Spirit triggers a Dispel. I think it's a slight green flash. It's really, really minor. And in the chaos that is the Semra, you don't really notice the change. So, yay! Visuals on a character model which is this big. So, it's something, I guess.
She's slowly growing on me. You know, she's definitely a good character. I've been using her a little bit more lately.
Yeah, I do find her really tricky to use though, just because that despite the fact you can load her up with attack speed, she still seems to send out her butterflies to heal at a fixed interval, and that kind of really limits her usefulness, because in a lot of this high impact combat, you need her to be sending out her butterflies. It's every 2 seconds, so yeah, you can't deal with the level of damage that's every 2 seconds. You need it to be more to be doing more healing than that, and that 2 seconds isn't affected by attack speed, and the only extra attack speed is how much extra healing they get when they're on her. So she's okay, but I'm really struggling to get her. I guess it could be an awakening things. I've only got, I think I've only got her A1, but I guess if you got her further up, especially when you get to A3 and she's got the strongest rage regen in the game, then yeah, that would be a good one. But
she works in a certain new mode that very well.
Yeah,
which maybe we'll get onto there.
Yeah, I haven't been using her there yet, but I can see that she would be, especially if you were trying to do something clever with particular lords. So, what else was in? There's Phelan as well, who is one of the new poisoners. Here we go. No, that's Vixera. Phelan, they've added some clarity to her skills. I'll go back. Sorry, I didn't read the patch notes well enough in advance. Here we go. Fixed an issue where the initial rage for her ultimate was displayed incorrectly on the hero interface. Okay, fine. So they've just clarified the wording, not changed how she works. So now, for those of you who are interested, it is now displaying correctly as ultimate is a 200 rage start. Wow, that's quite low. And she's got that Ajax range. That's kind of interesting. I do have her, and I have her like fully awakened, but I've just never done anything with her.
There's one of the later tar levels, which is epics only. She's good there because of the way she's got the Ajax range. So,
yeah.
As an epic, she's quite strong, and so is the
Lord Phelan. Sorry, Vixera.
What you call her? Name eludes me. The one below Pope, the epic for.
Oh yes, there's the Arbiter one.
The Arbiters, yeah, very very handy.
Alicia.
Just due to the fact she's got a wide wide range, and she's a very strong fighter. So you can use her in place of any of the sort of the standard epics. She's particularly good.
Okay, so right, so that's those part of the updates. Then what's on Drake's Chasm? So now they're throwing you a few more bonuses, a few more achievements. So there's a new achievement for getting 5,000 Dragon Blood in Abyss 1. You don't get it if you've already done the battle of the day when the day in the patch arrives. You don't get it. It's a new one, so you get a you get this. You get 2 ancients and the achievement points, which are worth nothing. And I think so if you are able to get 60k, you are able to get this achievement here. But I'm a little way off.
It's quite a nice graphic, to be fair. They've done a good job.
It is a good one.
Picked mine up this morning, so it was nice.
Oh, awesome. And also with there is an achievement for that for getting 60k as well. So that would be under battle. There you go. So you get that. You get 2 mythic artifact essence. So really worthwhile putting in effort.
I thought that was really generous, I've got to say. Because it takes a long time to max one, and I'm sure people have got maybe Hex max, maybe Kigiri max, but you're probably working on 1 or 2 that you've not got, and 2 is a huge help. It really is. So very useful. It's helped me. I put mine on Allura to help with GR3 and trying to push level 24 for it.
Yeah, I was for me, getting 2 of those would help me finish off Kigiri's artifact, which would give me a lot more damage out of him. But that's a very nice one to have. But we're getting there. We're getting there. Okay, that's there is some slight unusual wording in the next bit. So
do you want to just go back a little bit, because I think there's something not quite represented there. So Abyss 1 night, every chest you go up, you get the maximum reward as well. So
the first time you get that chest,
you will also get a maximum reward, such as a variant piece. So they are really sort of making it a little bit less frustrating and a little bit more, interesting to break the next chest, which I think is a lovely little touch. It's a hard fight.
It is. It's unfortunate that I used a load of stones to push me up to 60k already. So I think I've missed out on that. But it's a one-time thing. It's not every day. It's a one-time thing. So as you go up, the first time you do it, you will get that reward.
I'll tell you tomorrow. I actually think it goes backwards. So I got the 35k. Because I failed a run, and then I got the 60k, which I've done before. So I think I'll get the 22k tomorrow if I go backwards.
Right.
So.
Okay, and it added. So I know some people have been very short of legendary skill dust. It's not something I'm personally suffering from. This comes from playing for 1,000 days and being stuck for a long time, and I just managed to farm up a load. But anyway, so legendary skill dust, if you're looking for it, Nightmare 1 is where you want to be looking for. I know a lot of people don't like getting it, but I also know that some people are running around with about 150 or below in their bags. So if you're really looking for it, farm the lower Nightmare stage, Nightmare Guild boss stages. So on a Gauntlet, we've already mentioned, they've adjusted the difficulty of some Odyssey quests. Any affected players are automatically completed. Corresponding commanders receive the rewards via the in-game mail. Unfortunately, I can't look at those. I don't have access to the Odyssey, so I can't do a comparison. And I can't even re-roll an account on Forerunners because they don't let you do that. If I try to re-roll it, it'll just take me to global. And they've organised the Demon Troops interface, which is actually some quite nice features. We'll dive over to that. And they've added some guides to the Gear Identify. So Gear Identify is slightly less interesting. This is, so currently I think you had like owned and unowned, and you could do it by level, but now that you're letting you filter by more things. So they've got level, which is kind of interesting if you want to see which demons have got your highest there. Got BP, so this gives you, lets you see quickly which units are your highly affiliated, which are your highest affiliations attached to at the time that you've got the gear on them. Rarity is kind of the standard view that we're all familiar with, and energy cost. Now this is quite a useful view if you're thinking about planning your teams. I did just unlock this lady today, so I'm looking forward to having a play around with her, because I think she's going to really start to mess with people. A high HP unit who her job is to fly over the tank and die, and then weaken everyone else, leaving them vulnerable to swarms and death. So yeah, I think she's going to be interesting.
I think you'll be looking for Lady Alexandra to stop her getting anywhere near your tank. I think that's going to be the only way that's going to work as a defense.
Yeah, but she's got super high health, and you can do the double healer drop as well, and then she'd get healed as she went over the top, and she gets bonus healing in her kit anyway. So
double shield dance would probably work a treat with her flying over and picking up a shield as well.
Yeah, I don't know if flyers pick up shields, so that'd have to be one to be tested. Can. Oh, really? Right.
The only problem that stops that is the fact that you need a long map to get a healer right, followed by 2 lightning guards. That's 15 costs, so it's just a bit too high. But the other guy's a bit cheaper. Is he 3?
He is, yeah.
So it's possible with him.
Okay. So that was it for the patch notes, and obviously the bonus feature of the arena camera seems to have been sorted out as well. There's been a long requested feature, and so today we're kind of going to spend a little bit of time talking about Abyss. We obviously, with the new rewards, there's going to be an encouragement to try and push people up, and the Dev Insights have been making reference to Abyss 2. Fasty did a video where he pulled it out of the Dev Insights and started talking about it. I think it's an interesting idea, but I don't know, is it too soon? That's the question.
I think maybe the announcement's a little bit too soon, but I think what we've seen the last few weeks is they've really tried hard to open it up. Now, whether you have the resources, that's a separate question, but for me, I go off you guys as content creators. I hoard. I'm a very low spender, so 30 pounds sterling a month, that's it, So, but they've definitely tried to make, give you access to the tools to get your Abyss score up. And I know you're sort of ready for 35k, in my opinion, your team personally, but they've given you access to Hex with Divines, and they've given you the right banners in terms of, you've had Lord Phineas, we've had access to a whole new poison meta. If you were lucky, you maybe got all 3. You've got, which is a totally different way of doing it, which is the way I'm doing it now. You've got access to what else have we had? So we've had we're having a Kigeri rerun. We've had a Sun Wukong.
Sun Wukong. We've
just really opened up the chance to get more copies and push your score.
Narissa is making it more accessible to people who haven't been able to get Fercy to deal with the AoE damage reduction, and she does all sorts of things which allow you to go for a more fighter heavy composition, especially at higher awakenings, and her Abyssal Eye is spread out over a wider area, providing additional damage reduction, and it makes the meteorites that come down a lot less threatening to units which are nearby. So yeah, I mean they have really made a lot of units available. Obviously, with all of these things, some are
I
not.
think it was I think it was Sebastian as well that did a video where he got to 44k with just her and no Aelin.
Mm,
You know, that is amazing because Fercy is really quite dead weight in terms of healing. So, you know, she is, you know, definitely much more powerful. And if you can get one copy and then, you know, take her day one later, you know, she might be put you in really good stock for Abyss too. But, you know, if you didn't have Fercy, you could pick Fercy and you've got two shots at it here. You know, and
yeah,
certainly, you know, you'd be unlucky not to get one copy of either of them, you know, over a couple hundred pools. So
yeah.
they've definitely opened up, you know, different ways to strengthen your roster to put together a better Abyss team. So I think people might not be there, but I think people are going to be there soon, and you know, I'm possibly ready for it. You know, in terms of, I don't really see that Nightmare 3 is giving people a lot. Nightmare 4 chests are quite, you know, quite poor in comparison to Abyss chests. So chance to get some
Definitely.
better goodies.
So, do you want to just like talk about talk a bit more about Abyss and what the tools you've been working on to sort of build up to develop your scores, while I try and pull my team back together, because apparently I've stripped all of my gear off and I just need to rebuild before I start playing around in Abyss.
Yeah,
So bear
sure.
with me.
So one of the things I've really enjoyed about Abyss is, you know, when Ep.48 came out, you know, we had a great challenge and it was super hard, right? Trying to get 120,000, you know, not many people could do it. It definitely needed, you know, one way only, really. And then we had Lucius and then we had Kigiri arrive to kind of solve the problem. But that was probably the worst example, in my opinion. I like the fact this game's hard. I like the fact it takes skill and timing. And to my mind, Kigiri just came and kind of blew up the problem fears for you and just made it go away. And then somebody else later came along and changed the sore fears and made that super easy as well. What I think's been going on with the Abyss is they've opened up 2 or 3, maybe 4 ways of doing it. So what I've been doing is researching the different ways, and looking at how close can you get, you know. So, you know, for example, there's a Volca one as well. So, you know, you can go Volca and Cetrum as well as Kigiri and Sun Wukong. You can drop Torador as your lord, stick with Ingrid. You can have Solkadins, and now you can have Nastia. You know, so there's probably, you know, you've got to have Aiden, you've got to have Fercy, but the rest, and you've got to have Kigiri and Sun Wukong, but the rest of it's kind of open, and you know, there's different ways to go. So it's been about sort of looking at how close can you get in terms of your gear and your current build to bridge the gap. You know, so I remember when it first came out for us, you know, no, we couldn't kill it, right? And we're dragon slayers, so we normally kill everything pretty easy, and we just weren't killing it. It had double the health at that point, and the best kind of score was sub 22k. Then we broke 22k, and then we started to understand the fight and, you know, who to bring. And I also love the fact that the fight has, you know, if you watch 4 different videos, which I've done in my tools, is break different play styles down. There's different places to ult. There's different ways to build in rage. You know, you've got Kigiri here, and you've got him in a Kata set. I don't have a good Kata set. I've been really unlucky. So I've got him in a Solana Arcana. You can build him with 20 rage and he works. You can build him with no rage. It makes the first clicks very tough, but no rage does also work if you want to go, you know, with a 4 set, you know, with attack if you've got enough of them. And the same is true for Sun Wukong. So, you know, yours is A4. He thrives on about 70 rage, but you may not get 3 ults in if you haven't got the speed. So it could be 70 rage. It could be better at 20. You just have to play around with your style and what your gear will support in terms of whether you're going Warlord or Wicked Vengeance, etc. So what I've been trying to do is look at the different builds, see, you know, different ways you might take your gear, because it's a real stretch, right? You're looking at 6 good gear sets. It's not 4. You're not going to get to 60k. You might not even get to 35k if you've only got 4 good gear sets. you're going to need to cobble together set 5 and set 6. And unfortunately, none of those heroes seems to really want your IR sets that you kind of been working on. Only one hero might want that. Everybody seems to want the same set, which is the Soulbound Arcana. Or if you've been really jammy, a good Cataclysm set, which unfortunately I've just not had that luck. I've got like 3 stat Cataclysm only, and just not really thrive with it. So, and that's a really nice Watchguard piece because he needs some hit points somewhere, unless you've got Lord Phineas's artifact. And again, that's something I'd love to see the devs bring in, a selectable artifact, because I've wasted 7 weeks of my life farming Lord Phineas and had no reward at all. So that has been the one artifact which has just not come my way. I was really hoping we might get it for the anniversary, but not a sniff. So definitely one thing people can do. Your team is a good example for me of why I did the research. So if you look at your Sulkadins, if you just open him up again for me, please. You've got what I would say is quite a good build there. So you've got 11-1 is a bite where people go. So good sort of attack. There's a definite, you can't go too much on the attack, it doesn't pay off. You've got 195 crit damage, which is pretty good. He seems to like low speed, which you wouldn't think. I thought he would be better faster, especially because you can use him on the other phases to help you. So, for example, you could get him to ult twice in the melee phase to help. But he does seem to prefer being slower, and rage doesn't seem to be that important. So when I looked at the damage you get, and I'd be interested to see what your damage is, even at A2, he can get up to 86 million. Now, this build will be close to that build, which would show you the fact that there's more to come from yours, I think. And also Hex is good, as long as you can get around the fact you lose the burst of Lord Phineas. And there's 2 different ways to go into the shield with Sulk. So again, different play styles. You can go in, the Meteor Deluge. You can go in when it gets to the word, and that means he does his damage earlier, unloads, and then it gives you more damage time in the phase. And it lands the explosion, which takes roughly 6 seconds. It goes all the way to 9 o'clock position before it actually deals damage. If you're using Lord Phineas, you can go in sort of a second or 2 early, but there's a way of going in even earlier than that, again, which can work. So the shield's got multiple solutions depending which build you go with. And your Twyla, I had Twyla in my team. She's super good elsewhere. She just doesn't really shine in Abyss, sadly. I was A2, and she just doesn't quite deliver, unfortunately. There she is at 26, and Volker can almost get to that and do a little bit more for you in terms of a bit of additional healing and some extra vulnerability. So out of interest, which shield are you currently getting to then? Where do you 24? Okay, what awakening is your Hex? Okay, so mine's A3 as well. So Hex is capable of it, by the way. I noticed an interesting one where you don't ult him at the start of the phase when the dragon changes. You leave it 4 or 5 seconds, and I think that is because somebody's counted backwards and worked out when the big Hex damage comes and got the Hex damage to arrive in the shield. So that was an interesting one of the 60k runs. The fact Hex can last the whole phase, but he delays him, and it must be because he's worked out the cycle for Hex to deliver the big cards on time. And one other thing I would suggest is we can get into the sheet later, but there's a bit more to come from nearly all of your heroes in terms of just in the phases, and that's why I've got like a blood tracker, and you can kind of see where you should be on, whether you're on Pierce, so for the surge, what you get to the shield with, what you get to promote with, as well, and little tips for there's a couple of different ways of bringing the alts in, so you can go here or there. So you just try it a different way. Maybe it unlocks it for you because the shields are quite tight, right? So particularly the magic one, because there's not really much you can do. The physical one, there's a couple of different ways you can, skill play your way out of a problem, particularly with Spectrum, because you can put him in. He works well in a Hellfire set, for example, because that set's great for him. He works well with his exclusive artifact if you're lucky enough to have it, because that will extend the duration, so you can go early and have him fully spooled up for longer into the shields, etc. So there's some real, really good chances to optimize. And I think, to my mind, when I did my analysis, it's a bit like a Formula One car. Sometimes you have to lose a bit in one section to get a bit in another. So, maybe you're trading off your, your Sunward Kong to get more out of your Sulkadins because you're trading your gear around. But if you're comparing your physical phase and your magic phase together, then you're starting to see whether you're winning in terms of lap time overall. So you're kind of working through, where to take the gains or how close to get to certain builds, because you've only got so much gear to go around. Likewise, where you're going to put your next soulstone. Do you absolutely must have another awakening, or is somebody else pushing more damage with an A3 than you? Therefore, maybe it's just tweaking your gear and you don't need to put a soulstone in. So that was kind of what I was looking for when I was trying to work out, could I personally go from 44k to 60k, and likewise, how can I help other people get to 35k? Which I think, your account's definitely open for that. Is a little bit of tweaking, and I think you'd be there, because once you break that shield, you'll definitely get the 35. So that's one of the reasons why I've got a pace marker in my sheet, is the fact it's no point waiting until later and you realize you're off the pace. You want to reset as soon as you realize you've not quite got what you wanted out of the first 2 minutes, and that saves you some time. And it spirals. So is one of the things I've noticed from running, on pace, is the fact that even being off a few hundred damage on Surge can mean you're off 1,000 by phase 1, and then you're in trouble because you're running behind the the pace card, so to speak. If it was a driving game, you don't get it back. It just gets worse. So you're better having a good first phase and then going in. Just seems to be something in the dynamic of the phase that it will then give you a boost into the next phase, even though it's totally different heroes with totally different damage. I've got a version 2 which I'm happy to share when we'll pin it onto this. I took one of your suggestions, which was to kind of put your build, and then it will compare it against 4 different builds. They're not all 60k runs, so there's some of them are handpicked out of people managing it with low awakenings and doing particularly good damage to help people who haven't got an A3, for example. So there's a couple of really good examples of A1s doing super damage, or an A3 Kigiri doing more damage than an A5. So I kind of picked those out where I've seen them, because it takes time, right? To get meta heroes, but also sometimes it can just be a little tweak or two is what you need to help you, or even borrowing a friend, right? Friend Assist has been improved. It was heavily nerfed in the days when you and I were playing Nightmare 3 and Nightmare 4, but now they seem to have changed the percentage damage. Damage heroes in particular were so nerfed. Healers weren't so bad, but they seem to have unlocked the damage ratio such that borrowing an A5 Kigiri is... Yeah, absolutely. And that's the only other thing I wish they'd change is, to get Friend Assist, you and I had to basically purge our friends, right? Back to less than 20 friends. It just doesn't, even with the refreshes, it doesn't give you the heroes you're looking for. It's just a bit, poorly implemented in terms of what it shows you with 100 friends. So yeah, and gear lock would be quite nice as well, because it's always your meta gear, if that makes sense, and you move that around multiple times in a day. So it'd be just nice if it locked the gear set at the time of being shared, which would be nice, right? Because if you're trying to borrow mine when you were, I could have my arena set on him, which is hit points, and you're not looking for that set. You're looking for the damage set, which is now gone somewhere else. So also, just if you open up the leaderboard just for a second, I think there's another thing that's nice to do as well. So if you go to world rankings and just if you click on mine just for a second, but you know, if you scroll down, you know, I borrowed Cassiel, and Cassiel literally takes me to 60k using a poison build because I can't quite match the really good build that Jensen's got with his Catacet. So I haven't got the Catacet, but borrowing Cassiel for Fierce 1 and putting him back in for Fierce 5 gives me the extra damage that I need to be about 4,000 blood behind across the first 4 Fierces. So that's really good because you can see a hero like Cassiel and whether you wanted to pull them. The other thing you can do is, let's say you had A1 Numera, you could borrow an A3 Numera and see the difference in damage, you know, just to see, you know, what that's going to do for you and whether that's worth your stones, you know. So mine's doing 115 million, which is really good, you know, and, you know, I'm so glad that, you know, I just had to put a stone in to unlock that because there's different ways you could go. So, for example, A5's Hex can do that, and I've got an A3 Hex. So, which way do you go? You know, do you want to go with A5 Hex, or do you want to go with Numera and change into a poison build? So, you know, tight resources, and even with the anniversary, you're only going to get 1 stone. So, it's just a chance just to explore whether that would be investment well spent. And your reset book as well. You know, do you want to use it? You know, for example, I've got A3 Ingrid. Is A4 going to do much for you? Probably not. But it might give you a little bit, and if you're just missing a tiny bit like you were for the shield, it might just be enough. Or actually, would you rather steal 2 normal stones out of somebody else with that reset book and give yourself A5, you know, Kigiri? Well, you can see there, you know, Kigiri is an absolute beast and only gets better with the runes which are coming, you know, in terms of mine's got 700 attack on his artifact and 5% hit points, and then he's got 5% down his right hand side. And so, you know, that moves you from 44 to 60k across your gear sets pretty quickly. You know, when the rune feature is unlocked, which, you know, I think Global's going to love that. So, all I can say is for that Scorched Destroyer, that's another reason you want an A3 Kigiri or an A3 Sumwukong. You literally try and burn him as far away from your tank as possible, and then let him skip past you and hit the tank afterwards. And there are a few. There's some skipper enemies as well. They skip 2 tiles. You need to have something similar to deal with them. So there's some really fun little challenges to unlock, and they randomly spawn, and you know they need readjustment, etc. So the fights are quite fun. And if you insert that red one just for a second and show the red chests. Yeah. No. And the purple yellow one there, the 2 to 6, you know, you can get 1 good run which can almost change your gear for a hero, because that can go up to 1200 attack and 4000 health. And you know, that's a lot of good sub rolls. You were saying earlier, you know, you wish that 4th roll wasn't what it was. That becomes meaningless if you get a really good roll with that, because you know, 700 attack, you know, off a really good roll, that's like having 2 4 stats that you don't have in your gear set, or that extra bit of health that you just can't quite find as a sub roll because you're trying to do rage or whatever. So, you know, they're really powerful, and the red ones, you know, they can be really generous. I've had 10 of those off 1 run. So the one thing I would say as well, even the purples, just try the purples, see whether you've got purple and yellows with it. But the purples are dropping hammers. You know, so they really add up. You know, if you're farming heavy, you know, suddenly you're getting more hammers, which again, just a chance to tweak your gear if you're not able to farm that heavy. So I find those really add up, as do even just the skill crystals there, or the summoning crystals. Yeah, so you know, it can really, you know, you notice it over a week or 2, and it definitely adds a little bit more excitement to your gear farming. You know, it's well, I think people are going to love it. So, you know, certainly enjoyed it. You're going to enjoy having Ardea and Numera and people like that, because the range is a problem. So being able to reach people. And also, I would say that really interesting ways to use those big, wide alt arcs that Kigirians and Sun Wukong have. because you can not have the range, have them point different directions, and have them do a sideways ult into exactly what you're looking for. So if you time it perfectly, lovely. So, and Toluda's fairies are actually quite helpful because the waves come slightly off balance. They come one then the other. So those fairies actually kind of work for a single healer. So, and the other thing I would say as well, like, don't be scared to pause it. And I didn't even realize my phone had a record feature until I started trying actually to take the rune runs down to work out what to do with them. But record your run and pause, and go, okay, it's just about to switch. Pause, look at the sheet and go, right, okay, what am I doing this area? Right, I'm waiting for the double L on Bella. I'm doing A-Lane. Right, pause. What comes next? Right, next I'm doing this ult. Right, then I'm looking for this timing mark, and just build the muscle memory so you can kind of get used to what comes where. It's a complicated fight. It's a really good challenge in terms of making sure you're quick, making sure you know who goes where, even just tweaking your build ever so slightly, because if you get the build wrong, the ult's not quite ready, then you miss the promote or you miss the timing for it. So there's some really nice challenges about the fight, but also a lot of complexity if you want to absolutely nail it. If you miss an ult, for example, it's not the end of the world, but it could be, because Kagiri's ult's quite a lot once you get him A3, so that's 1,000 blood you've missed. So can you afford to do that with where you are in in overall? Do you just make the chest, or do you get quite far in, etc. And even just I know we've got a guildmate who can do all 5 shields, but is never going to get 60k until he gets his builds right, because he's just way off the pace. He's at 47k when he breaks the last shield. You're like, it's not possible to do it like that. You'll never get 60. So it's back to the drawing board, try and find the builds that with the gear that he's got. So it's a great game, and it's just getting better. So it's going to be even better in the next couple of weeks.
Hello, I'm sorry about that episode. It was a bit of a nightmare for me. There's one last thing I wanted to show you while we were talking on the topic of Abyssal things. So there is a new feature coming called the Abyssal Derby. Now this is a mini game which is you can see just running up here is a quick video. The instructions are running, and I'll just talk over it while it's going on. So basically, it's a little mini game. You play as a horse. You a number of obstacles that you run along and jump over. It's okay. The rewards are good. You get a couple of summon stones and some meteorites, and I think you get an ancient crystal out of it if you challenges. So it's there. It's fine, but ultimately the worst part is when you complete a run, you then have to wait for the other horses to finish. So here we are. There's just one run going. Just let it run. This is on the easiest difficulty, and then I will run it through on play through on the hardest difficulty, just so you can see the difference between the two. So this is fairly basic. Forward, you have the opportunity to sprint. You jump over gates. Wait for your sprint bar to restart, and then you go again. So this is it. Challenging yourself more than anything else. And there we go. I finished it in 28 seconds. But I then have to wait for all of the other horses to finish before I get rewards. And as you see, it's if you hit a gate, it will slow down. So that's that. And this on stage 4, it's even worse because you then have poison traps, which really slow anyone down if they hide with them. And if you see, it's a lot more things to deal with. You've got opportunity to hit the sprint button and get ahead, but it's randomized, so you may get really lucky and you may get very things or things that are more spaced out, and you're able to get more opportunity to get ahead of your opponents. But there you go, you get to the end, you sprint, and then I sat here waiting for about 30 seconds, which isn't great for the last things to appear. So there it is. It's a new feature coming, probably going to come out with the anniversary. I have feedback to the developers that I don't think it's a particularly good event, and I think it's to work before they release it. But there it is. It's free stuff. It's a bit silly, and yeah,
enjoy. And hopefully my sound will work better, and I will see you in the next episode. Bye-bye.